In this video example, I'll show you how to use CP clone rename. You essentially select a single object. In this case, I'm selecting the null. Now, one thing to note is that it will only work on null objects because you cannot rename a actual Lightwave object inside of layout. So we select our null. In this case, I just left it as the name null. I run CP clone rename. I can tell it to create a certain number of clones. In this case, I will say 5 clones. Now, this is essentially the name it will add to each one of the clones. So, if I create 5 clones, they will all be called clone, parentheses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Unless I have this option on, which will prompt me for each one of the clone names as it creates the clone. Now, you are also able to create an offset in the X, Y, and Z for each clone. So in this case, I'm just going to go on the positive X channel, add a 1/2 meter to each one of the clones. Now, your last option down here is offset from the original or from the clone. So I will start by using the clone. That way, each time it creates a clone, it will take that clone's position and create the offset based on that previous clone. If I left it on from original, it would actually create all of the clones based off of this one original object's coordinates. So in this case, I will be using from clone. So we have 5 clones named clone that are now going to be offset a 1/2 meter from each other. And I'm going to actually have it prompt for names. So I click OK. And I will call the first clone clone A, the second clone clone B, C, D, and E. And as you can see, if you watch the X channel down here, that each one is a 1/2 meter larger than the previous object in the X channel. Now, if, for example, you didn't want to have to rename and you wanted to make 100 clones, what you could actually do is come in here, type in 100, leave it at the name clone, and we will have an X offset of 0.1 meters. I am making sure to turn off prompt for names and from clone. I click OK, I give it a second, and as you can see now, there are 100 clones in here. But chances are you won't want to do it 100 times. Now I will delete all these and show the very last option, which is the offset. So I will do 3 clones. I will just call them clone. I will offset them in 1 meter on the X from the original, and I'm not going to prompt for names. So now I run it, and I now have 3 objects, which are 3 nulls that are all 1 meter away from the original object. So it has a lot of flexibility. It's just a matter of how you go about doing the cloning process, which will greatly speed up your workflow if you have to create hundreds of nulls for controllers or positional items for reference or whatever the case may be.